I had gotten online to delete my Plenty of Fish profile. On the "Are you sure you want to delete your account" page, I saw his picture. My God, was he cute. Tall, skinny, green eyes, great smile. I clicked on his profile and saw that he was a big baseball fan, as am I. Go Cardinals! And since I had just moved to the city a year before, I thought the name of his town was just one of the suburbs of the city. I sent him a message saying, "Hey, you like baseball? We should be friends." I told myself I would give him 24 hours, and if he didn't message me back, I would go ahead and delete my profile. This was at 9 p.m. At 2 a.m., I got woken up by my phone telling me I have a new email. I still wish I wasn't such a light sleeper, but c'est la vie. Turns out his town was 5 hours away. We weren't even supposed to show up in each other's searches. We were limited to like a 20-mile radius. We talked on the phone and texted for about 3 weeks before we ever met. He waited until I agreed to be his girlfriend to kiss me for the first time. And when he did, my heart jumped into my throat. I really liked him. We did the long-distance relationship thing for about 6 months until he found a job here. He moved in with me in August 2010. 12 years later, we're happily married with a beautiful family. It's been a hell of a roller coaster, but I can't imagine spending my life with anybody else. Well, my parents are pretty great. So when my mother was young, she had a pet skunk. She would walk her skunk on a leash to get it some exercise. One day, she passed a tire shop my father was working at. He noticed her and had to go talk to the pretty girl walking a skunk, and that's when it all started. Later, they entered a local contest in Boston for Best Love Story. A young Matt Lauer was the host, and they won with their story of skunk romance. They had the chance to meet Matt and a dinner on top of one of the buildings in Boston. I don't remember which one. Fast forward 15 years, I'm 10, my sister is 13, and we're standing outside the Today Show with my parents holding a big sign that said, "Matt, remember skunk romance?" When Al Roker came out to do the weather, he saw us and came to interview my parents. They presented all their pictures of 80s Matt Lauer. He hid under his desk in the studio, completely embarrassed. The whole team ended up coming out to see us, Katie included, and ended up taking us inside for a tour of the set. My parents are still happily married today, the mechanic and the nurse, all because of a pet skunk. I moved into the apartment across the hall from his. He helped me move my couch. At first, I wasn't interested in him. He was just some guy who lived in the building. But one night, a couple months later, he called to say he had a movie on Netflix and a pizza on the way. He wanted to know if I wanted to hang out that evening. I went, and it became the first of many times. I started to see him as the sweet, funny, intelligent man he is, and the attraction grew. We dated for 8 years and got married 6 months ago. She was popular in high school and had various boyfriends. Me, I was a loser who almost had no friends and hadn't even had a kiss despite being in my senior year of high school. The two of us had never even spoke a word to each other despite going to the same small school our whole lives. Well, one day, I decided, fuck it, and took a different route to class. As the halls emptied of kids, I kept walking the long way around to my last class. I happened to bump into her walking down the same hallway. As luck would have it, our last class of the day was literally right next to each other. For whatever reason, I decided to keep taking the long way around and walking next to her through a few hallways until we reached our classes. It eventually got to the point where we would chat with each other. We would sometimes even just stand outside the closed classroom door chatting before finally going in. If one of us was running late for our afternoon chat, the other would wait or hang around in the hallway until they showed up. We eventually exchanged numbers and began to text all the time. A few weeks of this, and the next thing I know, I'm waiting in the hallway for her with a bunch of flowers. I asked her to prom. She said yes, and that night after prom, we had a movie night at my house. I finally got my first kiss. A week later, I lost my virginity to her right before graduation. I thought I was going to make it all the way through high school without ever having sex. I almost made it. We just celebrated our 2 years recently. We have now been dating for 2 years and are both in college. Life works in weird ways. If that one day I had decided not to take the long way to class, I never would have started walking with her, and I never would have dated her, and I never would have bought this ring. I met my Aussie when he was an exchange student in my physics department. I thought he would make a nice little fling because I wasn't interested in anything more, having recently gotten out of a very long relationship. We had only a few months together before I had to leave for a summer research job in Europe, but by then we were hooked. Fortunately, he'd gone to the US on a round-the-world ticket and had to fly east to get home, so he met me in Europe at the end of my summer job, and we spent a few weeks traveling together. Then he went his way, and I went mine. We'd already been scheming about how we'd be together again, and I managed to arrange a summer job at his university in Australia. We had 3 more wonderful months together before being separated again. We were lucky enough to get into the same graduate school, though, and we were finally together for good only 4 months later. It was only a bit over a year after we first met. We've now been together for more than 13 years, married for 10, and have a wonderful family and life together in Australia. He's the love of my life, and I couldn't imagine a life without him.